thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cyndi O'Meara, Carren Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Carren Smith.
I'm Kim Morrison.
And I'm Cyndi O'Meara.
And welcome to today's podcast, which is a little bit of an exciting podcast for Marie, because we have got a very special guest on our show with us today. This particular woman has created something that is so unique and new, and I'm so excited because Cyndi actually made this arrangement for Lauren to join us today. But when we were talking just off air a moment ago, I realized I actually met Lauren about 3 years ago. So Lauren is the owner of, Lauren Brisbane is the owner of a company called QCamel. And they are a camel farm, camel dairy farm up here on the Sunshine Coast. So Lauren, welcome to today's show and congratulations on your entrepreneurialism, but also your spectacular care for animals. I love it.
Oh, thank you, Carren. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're here, Lauren, because I have been reading about you in all the local papers. Like I think you've been in the Weekender or something, or I don't even know what they're called anymore, but all the magazines and all the newspapers. And I keep reading about you and reading about your philosophy and what you've been doing. And look, I absolutely love it, especially when we're starting to see so many kids and so many people have dairy intolerances. And you've come up with this amazing idea, and really it's an ancient idea, because I'm sure did the Bedouins milk their camels for milk?
They did, and they still do. They still do. It's a very ancient tradition. They've been milking camels for over 6,000 years.
Yeah, so we always think it's new, but it's only new to us in Australia. It's actually something that's quite ancient. So let's just start with, how did you get into milking camels? And by the way, we had videos on before, and I was doing an example of hand milking a camel. If you can all imagine it. So how did you get into this, Lauren?
Well, I was in agriculture, and about nearly 20 years ago, it's a bit longer than 20 years ago actually, we were living out west, and we were living in the height of the drought in Emerald, and I watched a lot of people in agriculture go under, a lot of people, and every other week there was a funeral. So, and for a lot of farmers who were committing suicide, and it was about their cattle dying and they're losing their properties. And I thought then there's got to be a better way to do this. So you'll be pleased to know I didn't wake up one day and go, oh, maybe I'll milk a camel. And there was actually a lot more thought that went into it than that. And so a few years later, and I'd sort of looked around for an animal that I thought was a lot better suited to Australia. And then a few years later, and that's when we'd moved down to the Sunshine Coast, I was talking to somebody, and I was, in agriculture, and we had a business with friends of ours with competition quarter horses, and they had cattle. And someone mentioned something to me about camels in Australia and our wild population, and I did a little bit of research. And I walked into a meeting one day and said, I think we need to co-graze with camels. And that started the journey. So what Peter and I did, my husband Peter and I, we actually funded a 2-year study which I did and wrote about the development of the camel industry predominantly in Queensland, but also how it was developing and the development of the industry in Australia. And that's how we started.
So can I ask the question from an animal loving point of view, which you've got three of us on the podcast. There are a lot of people who believe milking animals is not the right thing, that we shouldn't do it, that evolutionary, even though we've seen that we've milked cows and other animals for many thousands of years, there's still a lot of people who believe the milking of an animal, apart from for its young, is wrong. Can you give us an understanding and a feeling as to why you think it's okay, and then secondly, why camels?
I absolutely get where people are coming from, and that's part of the reason why we decided to do this. Camel milk is a health product, but I also understand that when you're milking an animal, that animal is a being and they have a right to live the way they should live. So, and this is what attracted us to the camel industry. We don't remove our babies from their mothers. In fact, the baby has the highest priority. And like any mother, if you're worried about your child, then you're going to have problems producing milk. So the baby is our priority and a priority for her. And so we have a whole different philosophy in the way that we do it. We're about leading a way of change in animal production. We don't believe that you should have to take a baby away from its mother. And so when we milk our camels, we actually become the twin. So our camels actually make more milk for us, and we know that that's true, that we don't steal it from the baby because our babies grow beautifully, and few people have ever seen camel babies with huge humps and are so healthy. And in fact, our mothers have the right of choice. So if she doesn't want to be a milking camel, she doesn't have to be. If she chooses not to be in that dairy because they come in from free will, then she doesn't. And we have rehomed camels, so they're not destroyed. We have a no slaughter policy. So we have actually we've had and I can tell you, Dolly, she was the last one, and there was another cow before her, and she just didn't want to be around us at all, and I rehomed her. But Dolly came in. We spent 2 months trying to milk her, and she hated it. We rehomed her with her baby. So we make it a pretty good deal for them. They're fed really well. So for them to be able to produce an additional amount of milk for us, they have to be fed really well. But we also make sure that they get an enormous amount of time with their baby. So we only milk once a day. They're separated of a night time, but they're only separated when the baby's 2 months old. And that's so that the baby reaches all its milestones and the baby's happy to be in the creche. Now, some babies aren't at that age. They're a little bit young and a little bit immature, so they stay with their mothers a little bit longer. So we determine, it's about 8 weeks and they're eating hand feed, so they get hand fed at the night time. But what the mothers love about it is they get to sleep. Normally when they feed a baby, if they're out in the wild, they'll feed a baby for 9 to 12 months. Now, I've been out in the dark many, many times and watched my camels feed their babies before they're being milked, and they're up every half an hour. Now, any mother gets that. By 10 o'clock in the morning, they are out for the count. They are asleep somewhere, absolutely exhausted, and that's why they only feed them for 9 to 12 months. They feed their babies for up to 2 years with us, and that baby grows beautifully, and they get to sleep from once the baby's 2 months old, and then they come into the dairy to start milking. They get to sleep, and they love it. So when they're really happy about having babies and coming back into the dairy, because they know when that baby's 2 months old, they get the whole night off. They feed the baby all day. They're out with the other camels. We keep them in a natural herd situation. They have a very complex herd. Togetherness. It's matriarchal, and we honour that. So we're about leaders in change in animal production and making sure that the health and well-being, so both the physical health and well-being of our camels are upmost in our mind and in how we treat them, but also their emotional well-being. And I call them a 50-50 animal. 50% of a camel is its health and well-being, its physical health and well-being. 50% is its emotional health and well-being. And if you look after both, then you generally have a very healthy animal. So very healthy camels.
That's why I absolutely love what you guys are doing. It was so fascinating to me when I went out to the farm. A beautiful friend of mine Bianca. Her husband brings water to the farm sometimes when it's particularly dry, and Bianca knows what I'm like when it comes to animals, and she rang me and she said, Kaz, I've got a surprise for you. So we jumped in a car and she took me out there, and when I got out there I was almost nervous because I saw, you know, the camels, and then I saw the huts and the houses and stuff, and I thought, oh God, what's she brought me to? And my first inclination, or my first suspicion, was that it was going to be similar to a dairy cow environment, which I just would not have coped with. And I'm sure, Lauren, that it was you that I spoke with who I kept asking more and more questions, saying, so then what happens to the babies? And then what do you do with them at night? You know, like, how do they feed? And you actually put my mind at rest 100% because, you know, obviously my own curiosity, but, you know, I get scared for the way that we treat our animals. And when you explained everything to me and I saw the beautiful camels, their coats are spectacular. They walk with the most amazing pride, and half of them were out on this massive plain almost that as far as the eye could see. Half of the camels were out feeding and grazing and being a proper camel. And then there was a couple that were in, obviously getting ready to come in for the afternoon, and so beautiful. They just walked straight up. One of them walked straight up to me, and I got to put my hands on her cheeks, and we were like nose to nose. It was the most amazing experience. She was so friendly and so beautiful that any animal that's been abused by a human, there's no way that they're going to volunteer and come up and say hello. I mean, nobody forced her to come and say hello. She just came to say hello. And, you know, my heart just kind of leapt out of my chest. And I really, when I left, I think we were there for about an hour, and eventually Bianca had to drag me away to say you guys were closing, I think. Personally, I would have slept there. But it's such I'm so in awe that Cyndi has managed to find you and get you on the podcast, because I think that to have somebody speaking about how to be in harmony with animals, where everybody's needs are met rather than the animal being sacrificed, either physically or emotionally or mentally, I think it's so encouraging, and I think that it's just so profound, and I really want to take my hat off to you.
Thank you.
With the idea of milking camels, mm-hmm. Do you know why we're not doing that in the way that you do it? Not in a brutal way, but do you know why we're not doing that more?
We were the first in Australia we were the first commercial camel dairy in Australia, and there's probably, I think there's about there may be a dozen, although I've already seen a few come in and go out already. Unfortunately, it is a very expensive milk because it is so expensive to produce it, and the production costs, as you can imagine after I've just spoken, that they're quite high, but it is also a health product. Unfortunately, there's always people who come into particularly young and new industries, and they think because there's a high price on a retail basis for that product that they're going to make lots of money. And they really don't think about the ethical implications of doing that, or they're often looking for ways to get around how to do it appropriately and properly. From the get-go, besides wanting to do this ethically and produce a really fabulous product for our customers, it's also about, there's a lot of legislative aspects of being a food producer, and particularly when you're under Food Standards Australia. So we hired the appropriate people to make sure that we did it properly. So our standards, our health standards are, I think, impeccable. And I know Food Standards Australia and Safe Food Queensland are really happy with the way we produce our product, and we have amazing results. We've got the laboratory results week in, week out. The camel industry predominantly, I obviously have a lot to do with the camel industry in Australia, and I was instrumental with another group of business people in setting up the Australian Camel Industry Association. And it has predominantly been a wild industry, and any wild industry attracts people who don't necessarily follow the rules. Find that quite difficult. Any wild industry just attracts different people. So when we set up the Australian Camel Industry Association, we did start to attract a lot of business people who wanted to do it properly. But it's still a young and fledgling industry, and there's still people coming into it, the appropriate business people coming into it. So there's some good people in there, and there's, and like, as I said, we've already seen a few people come in and go out. But so it just takes time, but camels are a whole different ball game. They're a highly evolved creature, and it's imperative that you understand camels for what they are, for being a being and they're matriarchal, and they're not cattle. They're not cattle, and I think they're more akin to an elephant. They have a very a highly sophisticated matriarchal system. If you understand it and you study it, you understand that everybody has a role. Everybody is important in that matriarchal structure. Everybody from the lead cow or the matriarch to the 2IC to the birthing aunties to the general mums and birthing aunties, and everybody has a role. Our bull takes his role really seriously. I mean, he's quite amorous, and he's quite a happy bull. He has a lot of girls to service, but he also takes his role as being their protector and making sure they stick close and that they're, he looks after them. And we've chosen a bull that does that. We haven't chosen any old bull, and he has these beautiful calves, and they're gentle as he is, but he looks after his girls, and he looks after them with a lot of pride. So it flows through in the whole, matriarchal system. But we are their custodians. We don't own their souls, but we have a partnership, and we treat them as our production partners, or just generally as part of, we have staff, and our camels are so important to us for who they are. So they all have names. They have numbers, and I have no idea what their number is. It's if someone asked me, I'd have to look it up on our records. But they all have names. We could write a page on every one of them, who their friends are, who their baby is. I can tell you, for most of those girls, I can tell you how long their labours are. Their babies often come out knowing my voice, because I spend a lot of time with my head on their belly talking to their baby. And occasionally I get to deliver them if they get stuck. The last little baby I delivered, she is my pal. Every time I'm down there, her head is under my arm. And I think if you learn to look at it that way, we live in a conscious society, and I think there are a growing number of people who are conscious beings and understand the worth of any being on this planet. So I think it's how you look at it and how you want to participate in it. And if you want to produce food from an animal, then there's got to be mutual respect.
I think what you're saying is just so heartwarming to us, and I'm sure our listeners, and I think that's what anybody would want in a society, that there's that mutual respect not only for the animals but for the plants, for the way we eat, for the way we actually treat each other. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. I think it's extraordinary, and I want to thank you for letting us know that these beautiful animals are so cared for, and you've got me totally. But I was wanting to know, Could you tell us, I've heard, and I'm not sure if it's true, that camel milk has a lot more iron and a lot more, I think it was vitamin C, or there's certain things. What's the difference between, say, camel's milk versus cows versus goats? Could you let us know what that is?
I can tell you a lot more about camel's milk than I know a little bit about goat and a little bit about dairy milk. But camel's milk, the predominant difference between camel's milk and other milk is that it doesn't have the two proteins in it that cause dairy allergies. So it doesn't have beta-casein or beta-lactoglobulin. And they're the two main culprits for dairy allergies. So they're the significant differences. The milk is very similar in a molecular makeup to human milk. It is naturally homogenized, so the proteins are pre-digested, so that's so much easier to break down. But it's also very high in lactoferrin and also immunoglobulins. The lactoferrin's also in dairy milk, and I'm assuming I'm making an assumption here, but I'm assuming goat milk as well. But it is high in lactoferrin, but it's also the immunoglobulins. In combination with the immunoglobulins, it heals the gut and bowel. The immunoglobulins in camel's milk the immunoglobulins are 1/10 the size of human immunoglobulins. So the milk is really digested into the body very readily and very easily. So there's some of the main differences. From a vitamin perspective, it does have more iron. There's not a lot of iron in dairy milk, full stop. There's really quite a small percentage, and there is 10 times more iron in camel's milk, but it's really not that high. It's only about 2%. So it's always been touted as, being really high in iron. It's not that high in iron. Vitamin C it is. For 250 mils, it's 27% of your RDI. So the vitamin C content in camel's milk is quite high, and it's much higher than dairy milk. The calcium is much higher than dairy milk. And if for 250 mils, it is 16% of your RDI. So there's some significant difference. Plus, it's got A and D and B and lots and lots of vitamins, zinc and magnesium, and lots of amazing vitamins in it as well. So it's sort of it's a vitamin pill in a glass, basically.
And from a hormone perspective, has, like a lot of cow, sheep, or majorly dairy farmed, has been noted that there's a lot of hormones obviously injected into the animal. I'm assuming because of the way you farm and the way you look after your beautiful beasts that this is not an issue with you.
What you probably don't know about us is that we're organic. We've been going through the organic process for quite a long time. We've actually followed those processes since we start. We're actually in conversion, so we're organic. So absolutely not. We do not use antibiotics. We do not use hormones. We do not use chemicals. Our camels are on a plant-based organic diet. We do not use grain. Grain is not a natural feed for camels, and we don't use it. And predominantly because it isn't a natural feed, it ruins their gut, but it also ruins the gut of our customers and our clients and, the consumers of our beautiful milk. And all the research done on camel milk has not been done with an animal that's been fed grain. So we don't feed grain. And that's really, really important, particularly for people who have gluten intolerances, so that they don't drink from an animal that's been fed grain. So when you're talking about chemicals, hormones, and anything else that shouldn't be in feed, it's absolutely not in ours.
I'd just like to add a little bit to what you've been talking about regarding, you talked about two specific proteins in particular. One was beta-casein. Just so people understand, there's the whole debate about A1 and A2 milk, and there's a lot of research saying that the A1 milk has a level of it's called BCM7, and it's 4 times higher than an A2 milk, and it's been linked to many, many human health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that the camel milk is A2.
Naturally.
Yeah, naturally. So do you want to, can you expand on that? And then I'd like to talk about the beta-lactoglobulin, because I think that, we just quickly breeze through that. People need to understand the importance of not having beta-lactoglobulin in their milk. So do you want to first address A1 versus A2 milk?
Do you know what? I've been drinking camel's milk for such a long time, and I'm not a huge, and I did as a child drink dairy milk, and I think dairy milk was quite a lot different then than it is now. I haven't been able to drink dairy milk for a long time. In fact, if I ever drink anything within it, then it's a bit of a nasty following day. So for me, the A2 certainly when we were doing the research, understanding the difference between A1 and A2 was an important factor, and the fact that it was naturally A2. On expanding that, to be perfectly honest, Cyndi, I'd say that you would know a lot more about the A2 aspect of it than I actually do. I know a lot more about it certainly in how it reacts in the body, and the beta-casein and the beta-lactoglobulin aspects of the milk. But from an A2 perspective, it is much easier on a digestibility basis.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, there's so much research at the moment about the A1, A2. And I know in New Zealand alone, they are converting cows to A2 rather than A1. Mm-hmm. And, goat, camel, what's another milk, all are basically A2. And we used to have cows that were A2, but for some reason we bred them out and we went to A1. But now that is reversing. And there's a gentleman by the name of Keith Woodford. If anybody wants to do some research, he's a professor of farm management and agribusiness at Lincoln University in New Zealand. And his information on the science of the A1 versus A2, he's a strong push, to go towards the A2. So, to see your camel milk in my local stores, I just get very, very excited. I've seen it up in Mullaney. I've seen it. So, and I know you distribute throughout Australia, but for me, living on the Sunshine Coast, I actually see your milk everywhere now. So that's in the places I visit, I should say. I don't do Coles, Woolworths or anything like that. I go to odd stores. Maybe that's why. I'm beginning to see it.
And we won't ever do Coles and Woolworths. We're not a Coles and Woolworths brand. So we won't ever do it there. But we predominantly are in, the healthy IGAs and the Canaras and we do where, those healthy IGAs and those very good organic stores and the stores that are really stocking their shelves with really healthy alternatives.
Yeah. And the other one that I wanted to talk to you about was the lactoglobulin, and let everybody know what this is. So lactoglobulin is usually the protein that causes anaphylaxis. Mm-hmm. One of the latest research, which I find absolutely wonderful, number one, if there's no lactoglobulin in beta-lactoglobulin in the milk, then you don't have a problem. There's not that you won't have anaphylaxis to the dairy milk. But what I found really, really interesting is that I think it's in Geneva, there's a university anyway that is doing some research, and they've found that if the animal, the cow, which has the lactoglobulin, if the cow is organically brought up, then iron locks into the lactoglobulin and it renders it useless. The immune system doesn't even recognize it. So there's no immune issues. So, the fact that you're doing organic, camel milk, and now we're starting to see that organic cow's milk can become, the main protein that causes this anaphylaxis, when it has iron in it, it's not happening. And what you're telling us is that you're not even feeding your cows grain, therefore the iron isn't being extracted out of the camel. And even though you say there's just a small amount, I would say, because we know the Bedouins have been doing this for thousands of years and drinking it, and sometimes that's the only food they have is the milk of the cow and the product of the camel, and the product of that milk. So they might ferment it. Sometimes that's all they've got, and they survive very well on it, and they don't have the problems that we now see. So look, another question I have for you is that I happened to be at a freeze dryer a couple of months ago, and I noticed your milk was being freeze dried. Can you tell me, where can we get it? Have you done tests on it? What's it like? I find this exciting because it means that you can produce the milk, and if people aren't buying it, then you've got that freeze dried. And then could we give it to our babies? Is this where you're going, or what's happening with that freeze drying process that you're doing now with the camel milk?
The freeze drying is a new product for us. We've been doing it and running some tests. Actually, we're doing something really exciting with it, to be perfectly honest. And we've had something in R&D for over 12 months now. We're looking at doing a health product. And look, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet, but we are doing something very, very exciting with it. And it's been in R&D, and we didn't want to do a product. I have another business partner with this particular product. We didn't want to do a product that was everybody else was doing, and that wasn't going to make a difference to their life, and that was on the shelf. You'd get the same old thing on the shelf. We didn't, and we've taken an enormous amount of trouble to put an amazing product together, and it will be released. We're hoping it's going to be released by Christmas time, and it's amazing. So it's been in R&D. All I can say, we've had a product in R&D. We are also doing powdered camel milk, and we've just released a little bit to do it. It's not an easy thing to do, freeze-drying camel milk. I'll give you a bit of a heads up when you freeze-dry camel milk, and the amazing things about camels. When we freeze-dry our camel milk in winter time, it is the yield from freeze-drying is only 9.3%. So when we freeze-dry a tonne, we only get 93 kilos of dried camel's milk.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's not a lot, is it?
So, ouch.
Ouch is right, because I was yielding 30% on the product I was doing. So, 9%, I think.
9.3%. And in summertime, when it's really hot and it's over 40 degrees, the yield is 7.3%.
Oh, wow.
The reason being is because the camels redivert the water that they consume into their udder to hydrate the baby.
Mm.
They're an amazing creature. I love them dearly. But so we will, if this part of our business, and we expect it will, considering what we've come up with, takes off, we're going to actually have to build a very large arena to keep them under when it's very, very hot, so that they, because they sweat and get really hot, and they, so we've got to change. And when it rains as well, we lose yield, our milk yield in rain as well. So the 40 degrees and 2 months of rain add up to about 4 months of the year. So you only find this out as you go along. But so the yield is quite small for freeze drying, but we have developed this beautiful, beautiful powder, because when I first started doing it and we were milling it, I actually didn't think it tasted very nice, and I actually didn't think it was a great product. And I thought, I can do a lot better than that. So I've really played around with it, and we've actually got the processing down to a fine art now, and it's a beautiful fine powder which mixes with water beautifully, and I'm much happier with it. So for anybody who knows me, know I am a complete fusspot, and I will not do anything by halves, and I won't produce something that I wouldn't use myself, or that I would, and that's why we produce beautiful milk. And have an arrangement with the cocoa pod chocolate on the coast and make beautiful chocolates. And we have a honey and mango yogurt smoothie, and we use hum honey, and those collaborations and producing really good quality food is really, really important to us.
Well, we have hum honey in our marketplace, in the Change marketplace. Yeah, and she's got her hives on my farm. So, and so I have some quick, fast questions for you. Okay, so how many camels do you have?
We started with 2. This will make you laugh. We started with 2, and about 12 years ago, I said to my honey, "Hey, honey, can I have a couple of camels?" And we now have 110.
Oh, wow. 110 girls. Oh, my gosh.
No,
and it's your husband and one boy? Is that what we're out there?
We've got a few baby boys.
Oh, you got a few baby boys.
Yeah, a few baby boys, and our baby boys are rehomed. So, as I said, we have a no slaughter policy. So our baby boys, so what we do with our boys is we train them to be companion animals, companion camels. So they're weed eaters, but they also, they're for people with smaller properties who really want to have a camel as a companion. We train them so that when they go to their new homes, people get a huge kick out of them. They just love to hang out with their owners, and they become lifelong friends.
Okay. Well, my question down a little bit is, can I have a camel?
I want a camel.
I want a camel.
You have to take 2, and you have to have a big enough property to take them. So
Cindy, take a camel. Take 2.
Take 2. You can have 2. Yes. So
we may have to talk, especially if they're weed eaters.
Yeah, they do great.
Because I got 60 acres, but it's up in the hinterland, and it rains and.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I know exactly who I can send up, but we also match them to your personality.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Or you'll need a different one for Carren, as you will for me.
Yeah, because I'm very excited.
From Carren, I think books would be great for you, and Cyndi, I'm going to have to think about that. Which boy? Okay.
Need one I can talk
I need one too.
All right, Kim wants one too.
Kim, okay, all right, okay. So we'll have a camel matching day, I think.
Yeah, we will.
Oh my God. That would be big.
My next question is they're in the Glasshouse Mountain, or you're at the Glasshouse Mountains. So if they were out, because they're desert dwellers, aren't they? They're amazing out in the desert. So do you think their milk, there's so much desert out there in Australia, and we've got so many cows out there. Why wouldn't we be, having, and there's so many camels out there too, they've gone wild, and apparently there's millions of camels that are wild in Australia. And why would we not be, going out into the desert region? Do you think that the harvest of milk would be better for them there, or it wouldn't make any difference?
Makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Because when that hot weather, and also there's a lot of salt bush out there. One of the things that we've perfected with QCamel is about, and one of the reasons why we're organic, we live in a lush green area as well. Our milk tastes, as you know, tastes very similar to dairy milk. Besides being a producer of milk and making sure that my camels are incredibly healthy, if we produced desert milk, no one would drink it. It tastes salty, and it's really, really salty, and it would be really, really low in fat. And I don't want to give children need more fat. And most camel milk around the world, particularly in desert dwelling areas, has a fat content of 1.5 to 2% fat. Yuck. It's like ours is 4.8%.
Okay.
And sometimes I think it's more than that in winter. I need to do some more tests on it. But in winter, because it's so creamy and really creamy and delicious, If you're going to be consuming a beautiful product and it's really good for your health, and you also desperately need it for your health, boy, you don't want it to taste watery and salty. So it's really important that we produce milk that tastes wonderful as well.
You really know this business. I am just blown away by your knowledge about, you've trialed things, you've looked at things, and, you must be the leaders. Well, you are. You're the leaders in this field because you began it in Australia, and I'm just blown away by, what you know. So I want to ask you another question. Can I make butter with camel's milk? If I skim the milk up, it's homogenized, so I can't?
I think it would be really difficult. Sometimes, well, particularly in winter time, actually still now, our milk is really very, very creamy. I haven't tried to make butter from it yet. I would love you to try. So we can make, we have made the most beautiful quark.
Oh, yum.
Oh, wow. And we missed out by 0.67 of a point at the National Food Awards for a gold medal. We got a silver medal for it, and we'd only just produced it. And it was absolutely sensational. So, and it was rich and creamy. So, excuse me. I really need some milk.
You can mute yourself, and we can talk about all sorts of fun things about the camels, can't we, girls?
Yeah, I want to know. I mean, you might be able to help as well, Cyndi. Is if you've talked about all these, I think it was the beta globulin, the beta casein, and all the things that create the lactose intolerance and things like that.
Yeah,
is it advisable to go from breast milk to camel's milk? A lot of people go from breast milk to cow's milk. Can you go from breast milk to camel's milk, and would that be a better option in your opinion?
Well, last year I was in a law case as an expert witness in somebody writing an article in a community newspaper, and a professional at that, saying that all the reasons why we shouldn't be doing cow's milk and we should do goats, because camel isn't available where this community is. And so I put all the evidence across to say that she wasn't wrong, because it's like our big APRA, Australian Professional Health Registry, whatever they are, authority. It's like that was happening to her in England, and she was being told that she wouldn't be able to practice her profession, her health profession, and so I was part of as an expert witness for her. And we won that part of the case. She didn't win everything, but because they really came down on her on many, many things. But in the nutrition side of it, we actually won that because we proved that goat's milk was a far better thing because of the, and especially organic, because of the iron-filled lactoglobulin, because they still have it, and that it was A2 and things like that. So I don't know camel milk, but what I've heard from Lauren, I would say that, and I am saying this only as I would do this. I am not going to put it out there that, you've always got to say, well, you should first check with your doctor. But, it has all the beautiful properties. It has none of the allergens sitting there. If you have a child that is allergic to this milk, I would be testing them first on their wrist just to see if they have a reaction to it. But, I wish that alternative was around when we were having our babies. Not that I had any problems with breast milk, because I had lots of it and I never had to give my children any other milk, but there were other mothers that did have problems. So maybe Lauren can shed some light on this, what science has been done, and is that a recommendation, Lauren, that we could use camel's milk instead of breastfeeding if we were having a problem?
if you're having a problem, the Bedouins, I can go on history.
Yes.
I can go on certainly research, some research papers that I've read for children with dairy allergies who can't have any other milk. Certainly the Bedouins, if a mother couldn't feed her baby, they'd put them straight on camel's milk. So from, day dot. So if a mother died during birth, they would feed that child camel's milk. And certainly if her milk dried up, they would feed the baby camel's milk. I've had lots of my customers who've put their infants, they haven't had a lot of milk, or the baby is then a year old and they didn't want to put their child on formula, and they've used camel milk and said the baby has thrived. We've had other babies where the child's had a lot of allergies, the mother's had a lot of allergies, the baby's had a lot of allergies, and the noticeable difference immediately was that their skin improved and their bowels improved and their guts improved. And so I can go from the research that I've read. There was a really interesting article done a number of years ago, and they took 9 children who had terrible allergies, and they couldn't keep food down, they couldn't put weight on, they vomited. There's virtually no food that they could eat. Most were down to very, very limited diet, and all of those children improved 100%. So, and they were very severe cases. So, and that was an interesting article that I read. I've read others where they put children, look at it, and I can only say from anecdotal information that the children that are utilising our milk. But I will say that there is 1% of the people who have a problem with now. I mean, most milks are given, whether people are lactose intolerant. What it is most people have got an allergy to casein and beta-casein and beta-lactoglobulin, but there is a 1% of people that don't contain lactase in their body and they cannot drink our milk. So I do think that it's important that if you have severe allergies that you do get tested to make sure that you don't have a lactase issue. But what I've found for most children who have got, and children who have got failure to thrive, that they do really, really well on the milk.
So what if the milk, and I know we have to do this in Australia, but if the milk hasn't been pasteurised, does it have lactase in it?
Yes.
Okay.
It does. Yes, it does. And can I talk a little bit more about pasteurisation?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do that, because there are huge, and certainly because they're my camels, and I have the benefit of drinking unpasteurised milk because they're mine, and I can do that. But do we sell it? No, we don't. Do I advocate that people do? No, I don't. And the reason being is that safe foods are there for a reason. They're there to protect the general community. And it would be lovely in a perfect world. In a perfect world, we could drink unpasteurised milk by the people who harvested it from their animals to provide to the general community. But the problem is that a lot of people who do that, and most people who do that, aren't terribly clean, and it's got to do with the vessels in which they're held in and the tubing which it goes into. There is a build-up of bacteria, and the problem with unpasteurised milk that it can contain listeria. So there is a really good reason. I've looked at both sides of it, of the argument, but it comes down to the way people harvest that milk. And generally, a lot of people aren't very clean, and there are no guarantees. And I know people who in the camel industry who have sent people, and not me because I've never done it, because I just would never flout because the legislation, it's not worth it. But I have heard of people sending people raw milk and the people, and I don't know how the other people didn't end up in hospital. They were seriously ill because they didn't do the testing properly. Our milk is tested week in, week out to make sure it's really healthy for our customers. But our raw milk needs to be tested, and I know that there are people who produce raw milk, and it doesn't matter whether they're, in the dairy industry or the goat industry, and those people are really super clean and know what they're doing. But there's a really good argument against it, and it's to protect the general public.
Yeah, and it, that's what it was there for. It was actually started off with brucellosis and tuberculosis. That's where it all started. But they've wiped out tuberculosis and brucellosis in the dairy industry here in Australia. But there are the other ones that we are now, checking on, like listeria. Yeah. So you said also that the milk was naturally homogenized. So most cow's milk, if we were to talk about what homogenization is that it's where they force the milk through a very, very fine sieve, and it breaks down the fat globules into small pieces and homogenizes through the milk, so you don't get the cream on the top. Mm-hmm. So now you're saying that camel milk is naturally homogenized.
Mm-hmm. It's done through the process. The camels, that's how it comes.
That's amazing.
So the fat is broken down, but we still get a nice cream. It's still quite creamy. So
you need to collect that for me, and I will see if I can make butter, because I churn butter, so from cream. So collect a little bit for me, and I'll see if I can make some.
Fantastic. I'd love to do that.
We'll do that. Sure. Now, for people to find out where your product is, do they just go to your website, or how do they find out where they can buy it in their local area?
Okay. So in their local area, we've just updated our website, actually, because we've got a lot more customers now, particularly as we're organic. And so there is a number of stores, and a lot more, particularly around Brisbane, on the Sunshine Coast, but all our stores are actually listed on our website. So you can just put in your postcode, and the closest store will come up on our website, and there's a list there. So we sell throughout Queensland, New South Wales, and in New South Wales we're with the Flannery's Group, with Harris Farms, we're with David Jones, and we've got a distribution, the beginnings of a distribution network going on in Victoria. So we're certainly in David Jones in Victoria, and but very good organic stores. So you can just go to our website, and they're all listed there.
Wonderful. And your website is QCamel.com.au. And Kim always asks...
Oh, I wanted to just say that.
Yeah, I thought you would. She always asks a good question at the end.
Well, it was really what we'd love to know is that if you had an option and you had something to say to all of our beautiful listeners, and you wanted to get something really from your heart across to all of us, on behalf of your camels, on behalf of your farm, or on behalf of yourself, what would you like to share?
I think what I'd like to share is that a lot of love goes into our milk, and we produce it with our customers in mind, and so that we can provide a really healthy product, so that our customers are really healthy, but it's done with the highest ethical practices. And try it. It will astound you. It is delicious and beautiful, and it will make you feel wonderful.
Oh, and if you could just tell me a message from the camels, because I feel like if you know them as well as you do, then I think they've got a personality and they've got something going for them. What would the camels say?
Well, I think that, the great thing about QCamel is that while we love to tell everybody what we do, we open our farm up for farm tours so people can actually come and see for their own eyes. So you can actually come and meet our camels. So come and get a kiss and you will be inundated with them because they love a kiss and a cuddle. That's how we greet each other. We're a bit of a kissy, cuddly lot, and but when they come in of a morning and milk, they put their head over the race and they kiss you on the head. And when we walk up to them in the paddock, that's the first thing we do is grab their muzzle and give them a kiss. And they put their muzzle down next to our cheek for a kiss, because that's how we greet each other. And certainly from a staff point of view, and with all of us who work there. I mean, our beautiful Sherry just came home from holidays today, and the first thing we did was walked up and gave each other a hug and a kiss. And that's it's a greeting. It's, welcome, and we love you and they love us, and it's just, but come and find out for yourself, because our farm tours are called Camel Cuddles, and you will get 1,000 selfies of getting a kiss and a cuddle from our camels. And we profess a wonderful ethics, and we open our farm up so you can see what we do, so that you can actually see us milk our camels, and you can come and meet them for yourself and find out what we do. We have nothing to hide.
Carren, you might be a little bit short to milk the camel.
Oh my God! And Kim is shorter than me.
Hey.
Hey, I do have one more question, because Kim actually asked this before we started, and I think people might be asking this because camels are known to spit and kick. Mm-hmm. Why do they do that? And do your beautiful, gorgeous, nuzzling, cuddly camels do that?
Okay. So spitting and biting is a natural defence mechanism. And many people have said to me, but don't they spit? Or I was in Egypt and the camels tried to bite me, or they did bite me, and they spat at me. And sadly, that happens because people beat them.
Oh,
which is so sad.
Why?
Generally it's people who feel that they need to get the better of them because they're so big, and which is laughable. They're so big that if they wanted to swing around and do something dreadful to you, or really maim you, or do something worse, they could do it in an instant. They don't, because they're so gentle by nature. So do ours kick and bite? Have they? Well, the babies will mouth you because they're teething, and generally all we do is change the octave level in our voice to say that that's unacceptable behaviour, so no, our girls don't kick and bite, and our babies occasionally will give you a bit of a kick, but it's more play than anything. And if they did and hurt us, the first thing we would say was, don't you dare do that. That is unacceptable behaviour and we don't like it. And the minute you drop the octave level in your voice, they will put their head down and look ashamed, and they don't do it. And our girls, occasionally, if they're, you come too close, I don't feel great today, and they're not having a good day, then you might get a warning shot past you, to say, I really don't want you to scratch my backside, or give me a pat, I don't feel like it, and then a warning shot will go, but not to hurt us. So in general, no, they don't kick and bite, because one, they're taught not to, but it's also between what we do with each other. Our greeting is to kiss each other and greet them and say, good morning, how are you? That's how we greet them. Good morning, it's lovely to see you. And when we let them out, have a lovely day, and thank you for sharing your milk, and have a lovely day. And it's all about how you treat each other. So it's not general. I have had a camel click at me, and she did, and it was foul. And it was awful. I had to go home and have a shower. It was awful, but I was removing the wool from her back, and she didn't want me to do it. And I said, oh, for goodness sake, Cotton, I'll be finished in a minute. Just leave me to it. Anyway, she kept roaring at me. I said, Cotton, I need to get this off you. It's matted and it's disgusting. She didn't like it, so she emptied the contents of her stomach on my head. Oh. That was really
yeah.
It was terrible. I was almost ill, and I had to go home and have a shower. And fortunately, I had a plastic loofah, which got a really good go with my body. It was awful. And one other time and this is really funny, and I had my pink shirt. That's when we were wearing more pink than we've got this beautiful camel colour now in our colours. But I had my shirt on with my logo, and I had my makeup done and my hair done, looking a lot better than I did when you saw me. And and we were on Channel 10. I think we were filming something for the project. Anyway, Chelsea was roaring at me, and I went, "What's wrong, Chelsea?" And, she was giving me foul looks and roaring at me, and then right in the middle of about the filming was about to start, she hoiked over the top of the other camels, and it landed all down the front of my shirt. And I went, and I just said, "What on earth is wrong with Chelsea?" Because she knew I would get it, because she had tried to let people know that morning there was something wrong, and no one would take any notice of her. And I think the dairy manager we had at the time, for some reason, was having a really bad day and hadn't checked her properly. And I said, and anyway, I changed my shirt, did the interview, and then I went over to her and I said, "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" And I said, "Just let me have a look." And I put my hand up under her udder, and I nearly died. She had a really, really sore udder, and it was really swollen. And she hadn't been emptied properly, and her udder was killing her. And I quickly brought her back into the dairy and put an ice pack on her. And she was so sore, and I felt I nearly cried, because she was. And when I looked at her, I thought, "Oh my goodness, she's walking funny. She's got a sore udder." And I ice packed her, and then we did what we had to do, sprayed her, and we've got all these sorts of. If a camel, look, we can look at our camels, we know them so well, and we're so in tune with them and their udder health. I don't know if anybody there that's listening, or if you've ever had mastitis, but it's insidious and it makes you feel sick, and there's no need for it. Our camels never get mastitis. And people have said to me in the dairy industry, "Oh, what do you do when your camels get mastitis?" And I say, "They don't get it." And they went, "Yeah, but what do you do when they get it?" And I lean over and say, "They don't get it. They should never get it. And if they're cared for properly, they will never get it." So any of my staff can tell you which camel, on which udder, on which centricle, in which teat will cause us problems, and we know what to look for. We can put our hand up there and go, "That centricle in that teat is not draining properly." And we will work on it, and we will hand milk them out, and we will put an ice pack on there. So a slight change in temperature in any part of the udder will warn us that there's maybe there's a little bit of bacteria up there, or there's a centricle not draining properly. And it's so important to catch that early so that they're comfortable, and that, for them, being a mother and milking and giving us milk is a comfortable, happy, healthy experience. So it just doesn't happen with us, because if you've ever had mastitis, it's horrible, and you feel like your body you had the flu, and all you want to do is be sick. So our camels don't get mastitis. So it's just really important that, that care happens so that they're happy and comfortable, and you don't end up with the contents of their stomach on your head. So
Lauren, you're an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I feel like we all need to go out for little camel schnaggles.
You're very welcome to.
And so, Cyndi, we just need to make a date and a time to go out and choose our camels for your farm, because I think those camels which need a lot of schnaggling.
We will go for snuggles, and I have to find out if I've got enough land, and we'll do all of that.
Okay.
We will.
Okay, when? Okay, so I think we all need to get our diaries out and make a date.
Yeah, no pressure.
I love it. It would be such a treat.
Well, Lauren, this has been such a fabulous treat to talk to you about your beautiful animals, and to hear how you feel about them is so heartwarming. So thank you so much for being a part of today's show. I'm sure our listeners are just absolutely thrilled to hear everything you've got to say. And if they haven't tried the camel's milk, maybe now's an opportunity to give that a try and see the difference that it makes for them, and see if they feel healthier with it. So thank you for bringing your incredible passion and wonder of knowledge to the show. It's been an absolute treat to share you with our listeners. So for all of our listeners, make sure that you go and check out Lauren's farm, and you can also check out our Facebook page at allthews.facebook.com/up for a chat. And you can post your questions and your comments right there, and we'll always get back to you guys. You can also go to allthews.thewellnesscouch.com/up for a chat. Next week, we've got an awesome show planned for you all, so please make sure that you tune in. If you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating and tell everyone that you know about Up for a Chat. We are coming up with another hike for you guys, so stay tuned for that for next year, and we can't wait to share more with you guys right here on Up for a Chat, where we get to become part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. We're going to see you guys on the ride. Bye for now.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.